Welcome to The Jury's Still Out, a show highlighting and discussing all things having to do with law, trials, and juries. Your host is Mary Griffiths, a litigation consulting expert who has overseen thousands of cases in state and federal courts, and is a jury correspondent to discuss trial matters and media strategy as it pertains to jury selection and courtroom performance. This is The Jury's Still Out.
Hi, this is Mary Griffiths. Welcome to The Jury's Still Out, where we are going to talk about all things law, all things trials, and all things jury. Today, we're going to focus on family law. I know, just coming out of quarantine, that we have probably all spent 2 months just being surrounded by our families. So if there's one area of the law that may see a significant impact, it's going to be family law. I'm very excited to have my first guest on. She is a litigator and mediator in family law. And along with her husband, Judge John Roach, they've written a book called Divorce in Peace. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Laura, I've known you for a long time. I've never asked you this question of, out of all the different types of law, what made you to decide to go into family law?
Well, what's interesting about it is I went to law school to be a prosecutor, and I was going to be a family violence prosecutor, which I did down in San Antonio, and I'll tell you, it was a fantastic job.
Right.
But you know, 90-hour work weeks and not that much pay, and I was on a jury. I mean, I was actually a prosecutor with a jury, and one of our jurors was a wife of a partner in a large law firm in San Antonio. So he offered me a job.
Oh, wow.
And I went and did it. I did insurance defense for a year, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But at the meantime, I was dating my husband, and we were talking about getting married.
Right.
And so then I went ahead and I came up here, and I kept missing the family side. And maybe it's because I don't want drama in my life, and I like the drama. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I just decided that family law is a great place for me. And really, I started doing it. My husband and I opened our own firm up here in 2000, I want to say. I think it was 2000. And I did a couple family law cases, and I loved and adored my clients. Honestly, I was like, you know, the most people come in, the most messed up, look totally normal, right?
Right.
And so I saw an opportunity where I actually could help them and make a difference in their life, which I've tried to do on every one of my cases. So I kind of got hooked, and then it just grew from there. So,
but see, you have kind of like an interesting experience. So you've worked both as a litigator in family law, and then you've also worn the hat of a mediator.
Correct.
So let's kind of break that down. So how has being a litigator helped you be a successful mediator for family law?
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting because I've been a lawyer for 25 years now. I can't remember. I mean, we're the same class, so whatever it is.
I know.
And I did a family law case, and I did another one, and opposing counsel actually said, you know, you're really good at this. Will you mediate a case for me? I'm like, okay. So I mediated a case, and I successfully got it settled. And I'm like, hey, as a mom, because I had young kids at the time, I'm like, as a mom, this is a great job. I mediate the case, and then I go home.
You go home, right?
Yeah, and I don't have to worry about it. So I'm like, let me see if I can work this. So I started asking some of my other friends that were family law attorneys, will you use me for mediation? And they did. And so my mediation practice started to grow. But what was awesome about it is I still had a private practice.
Right.
So when I would mediate, I could say to parties, listen, I tried this issue last week in front of your judge, and this is how they ruled. I can't predict she's going to do it in your case, but I'm just telling you, I had my heartbeat, you know, in the courtroom. I know what's going on.
Right.
This is how it normally gets settled. So I was able to really be successful at mediation and successful at litigation. And the way that mediation helped my litigation practice is third party coming in. I have no interest in anybody. I have no bias. I'm just looking at the facts as an outsider.
Right.
And it really helped me whenever I'm trying a case in front of a judge or a jury to go, okay, this is a third party looking out on the outside. This is what matters. This is what I like about the case. This is what I don't like about the facts or the party, and just kind of go from there. So they both complement each other very much. I've had times in my career where I do more mediation and less litigation, and then I flip around. Right now I'm doing a lot of litigation, but my mediation is starting to pick up again as well. So I'm kind of in between, but I love my job.
So it's kind of, you have the street smarts of a litigator. So when you're walking in to do a mediation, I think that that's so important, because I know mediators, if you have that experience of knowing how this could go wrong, or how juries could, misinterpret something, I think that gives you a powerful mindset. So when you're dealing with your clients, or you're dealing with the parties, I should say, you kind of see if people are going way off the rails.
Correct.
It's not gonna. That's not where this case is gonna go. So I think that that's very important.
Right. I always I say this to clients all the time. I'm a street fighter.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I street smarts, common sense.
Right.
What are we really fighting about? Are we fighting about hours, or are we fighting about weeks with your kid, for example?
Right.
And I always tell my clients, we're sitting here spending all this money for you to spend time with your kids, and your whole goal is when they're 18 and don't have to spend time with you, they still want to.
Right.
So let's focus on that. If we're going to spend our money, let's focus on that, how we develop a better relationship and do all that. So, I have the street smarts. The other thing I have going is I am married to a judge that he's a general jurisdiction judge in Collin County, but he does a lot of family law too. So I have kind of that perspective as well.
That's excellent, right? Because you have that added bonus of sort of his experiences, what he's seen and heard.
Right.
That's fantastic. So you and I were joking earlier today, because COVID has sort of changed the landscape of a lot of legal practices. And I'm sure for family law, I've had friends say, you know what, we're going to see more babies in 9 months.
Yes.
We're going to see a lot more divorces in 9 months. And whether that's, good or bad, I think a lot of things are starting to bubble up, to the surface, since we've just been stuck with each other for 2 months.
Right.
So how do you see COVID-19 impacting your practice?
Well, I will tell you, I've been doing this, 24, 25 years. I'm not doing the math.
Right.
I have been the busiest I have been in the last 2 weeks ever, my whole practice. And I'll tell you why. People are taking advantage of COVID and using it for a reason to go ahead and file a SAPSR, which is a suit to establishing the parent-child relationship, or a suit affecting the parent-child relationship.
Right.
And that is to change and modify access, child support, things like that.
Right.
We see a huge spike of that in July, when the parent who doesn't normally have custody of a child has them for a month. They go and file these things because they find out this is going on at mom's house, that's going on at dad's house.
Right.
We need to fix it.
Right.
Well, COVID kind of did that because kids were stuck at one parent's house or the other.
Right.
And so I'm seeing a huge increase in those type of cases as of right now. But the other thing, as far as divorces are concerned, people were stuck together.
Yeah.
And people that have an alcohol problem and their spouse may not have known, now know they have an alcohol or drug problem.
Right.
People having affairs, really hard to hide an affair when you're trying to sneak off and go when nothing's open.
Right, right.
You're going, wait a minute, what's going on?
Or you're stuck in a closet and you're emailing or texting somebody.
So I've seen that come around.
Sure.
I've also seen people that normally don't open their mail because the spouse always handles it.
Yeah.
I had a client open all the mail and found out their house was in foreclosure. They had all this credit card debt. All these things. And so then they come and talk to me. So we went, when COVID first started, the first week it was business as usual. The second week, nothing. Like everybody shut down.
Right.
Life's going on. And then the next week it just started, and the calls have just, keep coming. I'm blessed. I've represented clients for a long time. I have a lot of personal referrals.
Right.
So I have a lot of business anyway, but it's been kind of crazy.
Okay, well, let's go on that. Do you think that the trend is going to be more divorces, or do you think that the trend will be a lot more children issues? Because I was wondering, since everybody is homeschooling now, I wonder how that could impact, some child custody cases, because maybe one parent's going to think that they're more, just able to teach than another parent. I don't know. So do you see anything kind of coming down the pipe when it comes to that?
I actually do. Homeschool has always kind of been a big issue, because if both parents don't agree in homeschooling, it usually doesn't work. Right.
Right.
I have a case right now. I met with the clients yesterday on it that mom really wants to homeschool now because she's gotten a taste of it.
Sure.
And dad doesn't think it's good socially.
Right.
So now that's a custody case because who has the exclusive right to make educational decisions?
Right.
Parents think that, okay, if one's the primary, then they get all the rights. Well, no, there's rights separate from being the primary parent, and it's education. Sometimes those are independent rights. Sometimes those are joint.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're carved out differently. And so I see that being a big issue. Not to mention a lot of babies being born, which if the relationship's not going to last, they're going to need a suit to establish the parent-child relationship.
Right.
So the court's going to have to get involved in that anyway if they're not married.
Right.
So we're going to have those issues as well. It's different than 9/11. When 9/11 happened, and I was practicing back then.
Yeah.
People were patriotic and love our country and let's count our blessings and I love you, spouse, you're not that bad. Let's work it out. You know, this is different. This is life is too short.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be stuck. Is this our new normal, working from home all the time? I can't work from home all the time with this guy.
Right. Right.
You know, or girl, sorry, not being sexist. So it's just a different little attitude. So to answer your question, I absolutely see custody cases going up. I absolutely see divorces going up. There's just no reason for it not to.
That's interesting that you said, because that was the other thing that I've heard a lot about, is that parents that have not had to work together in the same house, you know, where one may go, you know, to one job and another may go to another job. Now we're stuck 24/7. And so I would think that the divorce issue is going to kind of float up to the top.
Well, that's what I have a lot of clients that have met with me the year preceding thinking they're going to get a divorce. And I'm like, hey, listen, this is a huge decision. I am against divorce. If you could save your marriage, please save your marriage. Don't come spend money on me. And they are now coming back going, okay, I'm ready now. I mean, I had 3 people yesterday, I think, came back and retained me over people I interviewed 6 months ago. Right. You know, so it's definitely that life's too short. It's time to move on. Let's go.
Right. Absolutely. So that's like a very, you know, I'm sure you do, about human nature since you are in it. I mean, family law is the type of law, unlike some where, it's, you know, like, for example, transactional law, where it's just you're reading paper, you're interpreting what things mean. Family law, you're sitting in there and you're talking to people and it's all about relationships. Right. What have you learned in your experiences about human nature practicing family law?
People don't exercise enough gratitude for what they have. And people quit too early in a marriage. So those are kind of the two, I think, and I don't know if it's necessarily a human nature thing, but for me personally, I do a gratitude list every day because I see people that don't look at the positive at all, and I have to look at the positive. So when I do my gratitude list, even if it's 3 things, what I do is I spend my day looking for things to be grateful for, you know? So it just kind of changes the mindset. And I have clients that come in and complain about their spouse, and I'm thinking, okay, not that bad. That's called life. That's how they are. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you know, work on communication, go to counseling, do something. I mean, I had a client come in once, and this was about a year ago. Huge estate. I mean, $20 million estate, really nice guy. Didn't even tell his wife he was talking about divorce. I looked at him, I go talk to her. See if you can fix it. He goes and talks to her, and then 2 weeks later he comes, and I said, and don't hire me. I don't care if you're gonna pay me a $100,000 retainer right now. Do you know, I will not allow you to hire me. Go work on your marriage. So he went back, talked to her. He's like, okay, it didn't come well. So he came back in. I'm like, have y'all gone to counseling yet? Have you tried anything to fix your very basic communication issue? I could see it. You know, people don't know how to naturally communicate in a healthy way. And he's like, no. And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you the same thing. You can go to 50 other lawyers. I guarantee you they will let you hire them, and you go to court. I am not, and do it if you really want to. I'm not allowing you to hire me. Go work on your marriage. So you go about 2 months later, I see him at the gym. I'm doing like a wall stand. I'm like dying and sweating and no
he's
makeup.
Like, hey, Laura, what's up?
He came up to me and he's like, I just want you to know you saved my marriage, and I'll refer everybody I know to you because that's all we needed. We needed someone to just push them towards that. So I think people quit too much, too early.
But see, and that's because you and I started our legal careers at about the same time, and we won't mention how long that was. But have you seen over the years, is this like a generational shift? Do you think that people are more, you know, let's throw in the towel. I mean, divorce isn't as, when we were growing up, maybe as a given as it is now. Like
Yeah.
divorce, it doesn't have any sort of, they're divorced. Everybody you seem to talk to is like, yeah, I've been divorced maybe once, twice. It doesn't have the stigma.
Yeah, I don't feel that the stigma as much. Although some clients come in and they absolutely hate it. I'll tell you what I'm really seeing is what I call the gray divorces. I'm seeing people married 30, 35 years getting divorced. I have a lot of clients like that right now.
Right.
And I used to never see that. I would see a 10, 12-year marriage, right?
Right.
But we're seeing people 30, 35 years.
Wow.
I had a client the other day retain me, 82 years old.
Wow.
And in a 40-something plus marriage. So, so it's.
Okay, well, going to that point for human nature, do you think it's now like, did they think in their own mind, I've had enough?
Right.
No more. Like life is too short. I'm going to stop and move on.
Yeah, if you move their timeline to this, they would have gotten divorced at year 10, right?
Right.
But now, because they have kids going, Mom, if you're not happy, get out. Or Dad, if you're not happy, get out. I think that has definitely changed it. I will tell you, social media has changed it because you could run it. I mean, the 60-year-old can meet the high school sweetheart they had and go back. And I'll tell you, and this is embarrassing, but Viagra has changed it.
Right.
Because people are like, I want to go have sex.
Right.
Right. So there's been a lot of that going on too. So I think it's funny, sometimes I laugh because I'm like, Facebook and Viagra made me a lot of money.
So society, some pharmaceutical drugs has sort of changed. But that's interesting because I have noticed too that the more people you meet, if somebody's been divorced twice, you're not blinking an eye now. Whereas when I first started practicing, it was like, oh, they were divorced twice? You kind of, ooh. Yeah. But now it's just more of a given. So let's talk about your trial experience for a moment. What do you think that you've learned, like from jurors, in trying family law cases? What's something that your takeaway? What have you come, kind of and went, man, I did not know that before, but I get it now.
Okay, so one of them, one jury trial that I had in family law, I learned two really big things in that case for me, just personally. Number one, I make way too many facial expressions, so they could see, and I needed probably your coaching on like how not to do that, but it's so hard for me because I am a street fighter and I am, I'm a. You see what you get. Right. I'm that person. Right. And so I'm not going to hide it. Right. Well, the jury saw it, and I think it annoyed them a little bit. They were very sweet about it, but they did mention it to me, which I thought was interesting. Also, during that jury trial, maybe it wasn't that one. I had like 3 jury trials in family law, which is extremely unusual. Totally. In like a 4-month period. So I don't think it was that jury. Yeah, it was really weird. Wow. All these people, I'm like, you guys are crazy. That people are not that offended with adultery. Let me just say that. Really? My jurors did not care, which was fine for me because I represented the guy that cheated, but my jurors didn't really care about the cheating. In a family law case, you have to actually prove the sexual act happened. And what was funny is the person they were alleging my client had sex with, they said, oh, she's way too good looking for her to actually have sex with him. Oh, wow. My client, oh, wow. But I thought that was funny that that's what they focused on. Sure. Which was not what I was focusing on. I was focusing on
the fact that it happened. They were wondering how the heck did that sucker happen?
I was focusing on the hotel bills and the flowers and the thank you notes and all that. And they were focusing on, no, it never happened.
Yeah, and your poor client was probably hearing that in the back of his mind going, oh my God.
I know, ouch. So I thought that was interesting just from a family law standpoint, and as values change among our jurors, they change. They change. I mean, like you have to try your case differently. You've got to approach it differently. You got to know your jury. I am so blessed that I was a prosecutor because I picked so many juries. I mean, I would be picking one jury and then getting a verdict in another court from another jury all at the same time. I mean, I ran all over. Had to wear flats because I was running in between courtrooms. Smart. And I will tell you that was probably the best experience I ever could have had. So when I do have a jury trial, I know how to pick a jury. I know what to look for. And then I try to tailor my case that way. But I will tell you in family law, there are very, very few reasons to ever have a jury trial. Right.
But see, you've got an experience, and that's why I think some of the younger lawyers, they're missing out because now when they walk into a courtroom, they've never had that prosecutor experience and being able to pick a jury. They walk in and they don't know what to do because they've never had to. And I think there's something so primal that you get when you have to select a jury. Right. So you've gotten that experience as a prosecutor and then you used it in family law. So let's talk about how do you think every jury has like an issue sometimes with a particular part of the law. Do you think that there's something about family law that jurors miss or maybe have an issue with?
I think that probably the thing you need to worry the most about is it's really hard to voir dire on personal issues.
Yes, it is.
So you can ask who's been divorced.
Right.
You can ask if someone's been in a child custody case. You can ask...
did you have an affair?
Yeah, did you have an affair? And how many affairs?
Right.
And did you give your wife an STD or your husband an STD? Did you... you talk about money.
Yes.
Did you gamble your money away, or did you invest it in a bad stock? Or, I mean, just all the little things that come up in family law, you can voir dire on a little, but you really can't push it. And so you don't know what's going on in their head, and they're not going to be truthful. They're in a group of people, 100 people.
Right.
They're not going to be like, hey, I cheated on my wife 18 times. Well, you don't know that, right?
Yes.
So I think that's the biggest challenge for family law attorneys.
All right.
I think the biggest issue tried in front of juries for family law is usually a domicile restriction, and that is if the kids have to stay in the local county or the area or whatever. That's probably the biggest jury issue in a family law case. The only thing that in my mind is actually worth trying, although it's funny, I haven't tried that in a long time to a jury, but you know, we had was there adultery? That's a jury question, for example. Who should be primary? That's a jury question, but the judge decides access. So I mean, there's lots of, it's just, it gets softened in a family law aspect.
And see, that's why I think for like jury selection for family law cases, it's the significance of having a jury questionnaire because of just what you said. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've sat in trial, you know, picking a jury, and there are some just, awkward questions where you're going, there's no way in a group of 45 or 50 people, somebody's going to raise their hand. Because then it's like scarlet letter, the whole thing. Right. But the jury questionnaire, that is a place, particularly for family law, that you need to have one. Right. So people can be candid enough or ask, can I speak to you in private about this? All of that good stuff, for sure.
Well, and I'll tell you the other unique aspect with the family law case is that if you can afford a jury trial in a family law case, you probably make pretty decent money. Right. Especially up in Collin County, okay? Right. I mean, I do Collin, Denton, Dallas, and Fort Worth, but I mean, and Tarrant, but in Collin's my home base because that's where my husband's a judge as well. Right. But when if you have enough money to pay your lawyers and the other side has enough money to pay the lawyers for a jury trial case, they make good money. You start questioning the jury, and even though it's Collin and people make pretty decent money in Collin, you know, there's a different perspective. I had a client that, you know, he makes $800,000 a year. Great money, right? Right. The jury said, yeah, if you make $100,000, that's rich. Right. You know, and so then you have to tailor that down too, because you don't want them not liking your client because your client makes so much money. So that's an interesting perspective on family law too, because they know all that.
Yes. And see, the thing with family law that's like maybe different than, you know, your prosecutor experience is that the witnesses that they're dealing with, they're not like the corporate people. Like a CEO is going to know that I'm going to have to be in litigation at some point. So they know maybe a deposition is coming. They may know that they're ready for trial. You deal with people that never have been deposed before, may never have had any experience walking into a courtroom. And it's for those cases, sometimes when I'm prepping witnesses, they're the hardest witness because this is so new and it's so primal what they're going through. Right. That, I mean, like, so how do you kind of get a witness prepared?
The way that I normally do it is I practice. Okay. So I go through my outline with them, and then I either do it or I have another attorney in my office or co-counsel on the case, cross-examine them, so that they get both sides of it, so they understand what that is. I try really hard to make sure that they understand facial expressions matter, because I'm the worst. That they answer honestly, because it will come back if they don't, and answer shortly. You know, like a short answer. Because a lot of times you ask somebody, well, how's your son doing? And the answer may be, he's doing really well, he loves his math class. But they'll go on, he's doing great, because he does this and this and this and this and this, because it's a custody case and you want to show what a great mom you are. I'm like, don't do that. I'll follow up. Well, isn't he also in this activity and that activity? So I think you have to just say, you know, keep it minimal. And so I practice. That's the key. A lot of attorneys just put their clients on the stand with no run through. I got to do a run through.
And for the client themselves, because they're going to be discussing whether it's something to do with, their firstborn, something to do with, adultery. I mean, that is primal moments that if they're not prepped correctly, I think they can just implode.
Right. And also, I always tell my jurors, remember, the judge you're talking to is a parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've had issues in their life. They've had marriage issues. They may have had alcohol issues, or their family has alcohol issues. Right. They may have a mental health situation. They're humans.
Totally.
They may have yelled at their kids this morning too.
Right.
So speak to that. That's your audience in most cases. So speak to that and be honest and be humble.
And be real.
Right.
Instead of like, oh, I want everybody to look at this and look at how a great mom, when really somebody would much more respond, jurors would much more respond to, yeah, I had a bad day and this is why.
Right. And there's an instant connection right there.
Absolutely.
Because if you're vulnerable with me and tell me your defects, this is in life, any relationship.
Right.
And especially in the courtroom. If you're vulnerable with me, then I'm connected, because I'm like, okay, me too.
Right.
So
let me through the facade, if you will.
Right.
So let's talk about your book. I mean, I find it fascinating. I've known you and John for a while, but you guys wrote a book together, which is fabulous that you wrote with your husband and did like a project together. So tell me about this book. When did you guys write this?
Okay, so it came out in 2016. The reality is, when John first became a judge, so he's been a judge, oh gosh, I'm going to get it wrong. It's probably been 14 years. I don't know. A long time.
Yes, long time.
He would come home and complain about, oh my gosh, these people were in here and they spent $120,000 in attorney's fees. And then I was mediating a lot of cases at the time. And I would come home and go, oh my gosh, these people spent $80,000 in attorney's fees. And I'm like, we got to come up with something. Like, we need to tell people what we know. Like, we need to combine what you know as a judge from the judge's perspective, what I know as a litigator and a mediator from my perspective, to tell people this is the right way to do it. Okay. So we wrote a book called How to Avoid a Texas-Sized Divorce. Now, when I say I mean we hand wrote it. Right. And it was a bunch of pieces of paper stuck together, and that's what we called it. We're like, one day we need to finish that and get it published.
Wait, why didn't y'all have a computer back?
Well, I think we did, but I think we would go like, I mean, and this is, we had laptops then. I just think we would go and sit at a restaurant and write and do
be old school and write on your pad. I love it.
And so we had it in the drawer, and we had it in this drawer, and we'd move it around. And then in 2015, I mediated a very well-known MLB, very well-paid baseball player's divorce.
Okay.
And in 4 months, I think they'd spent about $800,000 in attorney's fees.
Wow.
I settled the case in about 8 hours between 2 days. And I thought, if they'd come to me in the beginning,
you could have saved so much more money.
Yeah, I would have gotten it done.
For sure.
Listen, the difference between a $10 estate and a $100 million estate is zeros.
Right.
Same issues, same solutions for the most part. Now, I got to get some other lawyers on some transactions and that kind of stuff, but otherwise it's not a big deal. So the agent for this player said, how do I sell you? Like, how do I take your mentality and apply it? Because she has so many other clients that are getting taken advantage of and doing that. And, I'm not ripping on lawyers, by the way. I am one of them. People pay me a lot of money to do their cases.
Sure.
It's just, I try not to waste it.
Right.
I try to only fight the stuff that's worth fighting. And I try to be reasonable and, common sense. So I said, my husband and I wrote this book called How to Avoid a Texas-Sized Divorce. And she said, you need to make that national. Can you write that? And we have a conference coming up in October. Can you get it done by then?
You're like, I'm going to need more paper and more pencils ASAP.
I'm like, I don't know, but let me see.
Sure.
So John and I decided to go ahead and give it a try. We ended up not having it done for that conference, but we had it done for a conference in March. And this is it. Divorce and Peace is what we ended up calling it. Alternatives to War from a Judge and Lawyer. And it just basically, it's an interesting book in the sense that it has a judge's perspective, it has my perspective, and I don't want to say dumbs down, but it kind of just says, okay, guys, when you're going to get divorced, try all these methods
before.
Yeah, and see what you can get done on your own. And if not, call me, I'll help you do it.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Did you guys disagree on any of those topics that you, I mean, because that would be the funnier part is like, was there something in there that you two were like, no, I think it's this way, you think it's that way? What were some of those issues?
I'm trying to think right now. I know there were, because I remember one time I got up and left. I was so mad about something, and I can't,
I'm getting a divorce, reading it, writing a divorce thing.
It was the first chapter is how, basically don't get divorced. The first chapter is let's fix this.
Right.
And then I think my husband husband may have made some comment going, well, you didn't do that. And I'm like, I don't need to do that. And we ended up getting it about that going, well, are we going to recommend stuff even we haven't followed?
Exactly.
So I think that was one of them. I don't think from a legal, I mean, he and I are pretty well, every once in a while I'll say, why'd you do that? Like if he tells me about a ruling he made, or I'll say I approached the case one way and he's like, well, why did you do that? Why didn't you do ABC? And I'm like, great idea. He always tells me I need to bill him out, or he needs to charge a consult fee. Because I run cases by him and he's like, no, what you really need to do is this. So there's probably some things like that in there, but I really don't remember a specific event.
So is there a part in there that you would really want people to, understand? I mean, your theme throughout this has been to use common sense and go to divorce as one of the last things. So is there something else in there that you would say, you know what, if you take anything away from this, take this?
Yeah, I will tell you that the whole chapter on child custody, page 145, we have some examples in there about kids. And I say this to my clients all the time. We can fight about A and B all day long, but what it comes down to, all your kid wants is for you to get along with their spouse, and I don't care what the kid's telling you. Kids tell you things they think that you want to hear. And when it comes down to it, that's not what they want to hear. I mean, that's not what they truly believe. So all kids want is mom and dad to get along, and do whatever you can do to make that happen. Give your kids the peace. Your life, you may have made some wrong choices. You may not be the best spouse. Your husband or wife may not be the best spouse, but love your kids more than you hate your spouse. Bottom line.
I love that.
Love your kids more. Because they deserve it.
And after all, it is in the best interest of the child to be doing that. Well, Laura, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. You know, I love talking to you. If you want to hear more or read more about Laura's book, we're going to put a link down. And please follow us on YouTube and check out our social media pages. Until we see each other again, thanks.
Thanks for watching The Jury's Still Out. To learn more about Mary Griffiths or our guests today, check the description below. Don't forget, we'll be here every other week of the month with more incredible trial stories.